Hello. Good evening, everybody. I hope you can hear me. Tell me if my mic is not working or you cannot hear me. If there's any issues, just shout. Please message. Let me know my mic's working. Hello, everyone in the chat. Hi, Goldie. Just adjust my light here. Care for JC YouTube. I work Thursday evening, so I missed the live, but I can catch 15 minutes. Well, welcome for the 15 minutes you're going to be here. It is a Thursday. I have missed Thursday at 2 in the UK time zone, but in 15 minutes it will be 2 o'clock on a Thursday somewhere. I'm doing maths in my head now. 10 hours. Who's 10 hours behind? 10 hours behind UK. So in French Polynesia, in 15 minutes, it'll be Thursday at 2. Which, as those of you who might be wondering what the hell I am talking about, Thursday at 2 is the end or the start of the week in Scientology. So it's a bit of a big deal. Hawaii, yeah, maybe. Talking of Thursdays at 2, get this bit out of the way. Next Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern time, which is 7 p.m. UK time, I will be doing a live stream with Catherine Olsen right here on YouTube. Sorry, I'm trying to sort this light out because it's reflecting in my glasses. Hold on. Do I need to turn it down a bit? Is that better? Okay. Yeah, so Thursday at 2 Eastern time next week, which is 7 p.m. UK time, I will be doing a live chat with Catherine Olsen, which will be all about superpower and the opening of the superpower building, because we both realized that we were both on staff when the new superpower building opened in Florida at Flag, and I don't think anyone else on YouTube was around then. Ian Rafalco was. He was a public. He did go and do the superpower rundown. So hopefully you can get him on board. I haven't messaged him yet, but I do plan to message him and see if he's around and wants to join the live stream. But if he can't, not the end of the world, because we were just going to go through what superpower is. So for those of you who don't know, a few years back, Scientology released this new part of this building at Flag where they delivered the superpower and cause resurgence rundowns, which are these new services that are on the bridge but on the sides. They're not actually part of your bridge, but they are things that you could do. So it was quite a big moment in Scientology because they released the superpower building, they released the superpower cause resurgence rundowns, they also released the new e-meter, which is the one that they currently have and they're currently using, and they also had this whole golden age of tech 2 situation going on, which I believe needs to be covered a little bit more. So stick that in your diaries. Goldie, I'm giving you a week's notice here for a live stream that's going to happen 2 p.m. Eastern time on Thursday. If you can make it, that would be great. But also, no worries. There's no obligation on anyone to show up. We will always record it and we can always talk about it and watch it later if you can't make it for the live stream. So I don't plan to be on this for hours and hours because I do know that there are other live streams that are in the mix this evening. I believe, am I right in thinking Mark is going live later? Yeah, so at 1:30 this morning UK time, 6:30 p.m. their time. Claire and Mark are going live. I don't know if Aaron Smith 11 is going live. He hasn't put anything up, but I would imagine he will because he always goes live. Because he hasn't put much up today, so I'd imagine he'd be live at some point soon. Anyway, so I just wanted to talk to you a little bit before we start doing questions. Goodbye. Go and eat well. Get your blood sugar levels up, and try and watch this on the replay. So I'm going to talk a little bit for a few minutes. And oh yeah, and Poe. Oh yeah, is it Thursday? Is that tonight? Yes. So Poe on the Go is going live with Doug Kramer, my good mate, my good pal, my friend. Doug Kramer from Dazed But Not Confused. He will be going live with Poe on the Go this evening as well. So there's a lot going on tonight. So I'm not going to keep you for too long because there's going to be loads of content for you to watch. Aaron is on now with a taped interview. Oh, yes, he did drop that. He's not live, though, I don't believe. So hopefully this isn't clashing. Mike Crinder at 9 Eastern. God, Goldie, you've got a lot going on tonight. Wow. Well, I also will try and be there for as many as I can. So I thought, let's get this out of the way while it's still a kind of respectable UK EU time. It's only 10 to midnight. So I did get a few comments on some previous videos going, please do some more European friendly time stuff. So I will be doing that. And I'm going to start pushing stuff earlier and earlier if I can. Cool. So let me talk a little bit. And then while I'm talking, if you have any questions for me, stick them in the comments. Super chats are welcome. YouTube take 30% of all the super chats money. So someone donated $10, right? They did a super chat for $10. I ended up, I think, well, I haven't actually been paid yet, but I will get, I think it's £4 out of a $10 donation, which is kind of insane, but who cares? I'm not in this for the money. Every little donation helps. It just covers the cost of my microphone and the streaming platform and all that sort of stuff. So let's talk a little bit about Grant Cardone. So for those of you who noticed, I was on a stream with Aaron Smith-Levin, growing up in Scientology, the other day. We talked a bit about social media and Grant Cardone and how he doesn't really know what he's talking about. First of all, I want to not necessarily correct myself, but I suppose make something a little bit clearer, because I slightly misunderstood something and I want to correct the record. So in his interview with Lara Trump, Grant Cardone was talking about lots of things. And one of the things we covered was, I mentioned that he is slightly sexist because he had this comment about Lara would get more views if she went on and did something in a bikini, right? And we talked a little bit about that. And I made it seem like Grant was sexist because he's the one that suggested she should wear a bikini. I was wrong. Grant did not suggest that she wore a bikini. But the sentiment and the reason I said this stays. And I remember writing down in my notes that it was the way he said it that was sexist. And I looked back at this video today and realized why I said that. And it wasn't the fact that she should be in a bikini that was sexist. It was the way that he presented the information. She, in fact, was the one that said she should wear a bikini, right? She made that suggestion. But what makes Grant the sexist in the situation is the fact that she asked the question of, how do you think it would be received if she did a video similar to the nature that he did? And his response was, it depends what you're wearing. After which Lara then said, well, I'd have to wear a bikini, it would get more views, etc. And I think that's where my point came from with him being sexist, because he said it depends what you're wearing. Now, there's no denying that girls in bikinis get a lot of attention on the social media versus girls not in bikinis. But that doesn't mean, A, that's the right attention for what you're trying to do, and B, that doesn't mean girls not in bikinis don't get the same amount of attention, right? You can have a picture of a very successful female who's not in the bikini. Meghan Markle, right? You post a news article or a tweet or something about Meghan Markle, it will get loads of responses. That's a female. She's not in a bikini. Yes, a girl in a bikini is something that you could associate in your mind as something that would get a lot of attention. But there is plenty of content out there that involves females that gets a lot of attention that doesn't require them wearing a bikini in the content. And that's the point I was trying to make. So I was wrong about saying Grant Cardone suggested Lara Trump should wear a bikini in the content that she creates. I was wrong about that. What I wasn't wrong about was the fact that he said, well, it depends what you're wearing. Well, no, it doesn't depend what you're wearing, because you can put content out there as a female and get plenty of views and plenty of likes regardless of what you're wearing, right? So let's just have a quick look at this. I'm going to see if it's going to let me share my screen, because I've not actually done this on a live stream before. So please tell me if you can see this okay. And I'm going to skip it back a little bit, and I'm going to press play. Tell me if you can hear the audio. If you can't hear the audio.
Unscripted. I'm just gonna lay it out the way it is. If you don't like me for it, no problem.
Well, he's not upset about showing off the assets that he has.
I'm just going to pause that now while I see some responses in the chats. Can you hear the audio from that little screen share that I just played there?
So, there are some similarities there too. What do you think would happen, Grant, if I sat on top of a Rolls?
Can you guys hear the audio from the clip that I'm playing? Yes, you can hear. Okay, fab. So just listen to the wording here, right? Let's just go back.
I'm just gonna lay it out the way it is. If you don't like me for it, no problem.
Well, he's not upset about showing off the assets that he has. So, there are some similarities there too. What do you think would happen, Grant, if I sat on top of a Rolls Royce and was like just throwing the money out? Like, how do you think that would be received? I mean, people would. I couldn't even imagine the reaction if I did something like that.
Depends on what outfit you wear. So
obviously it'd have to be in a bikini of some variety. I think that's the only way to successfully execute that one.
Okay, so she said, how would people respond if I sat on a Rolls Royce putting the money out there, which is exactly the same thing Grant Cardone did. And he said, it depends what you wear. And then she said, yeah, it would have to be a bikini, blah, blah, blah. But by Grant saying it depends what you wear, that is him suggesting that a video of Lara Trump sitting on a Rolls Royce, spraying out the money, exactly the same as Grant Cardone did. We're talking about the same content Grant has already put out there. Lara says, what would it be like if I did it? Right? And instead of Grant saying, yes, I think that would be just as successful, or no, it wouldn't be because you're not known as a financial person, or whatever his response is. His response isn't reviewing her in that situation versus him in that situation. He's saying, well, it depends what you're wearing. How do people respond to me doing the same thing you did as you? Well, it depends what you're wearing, right? Come on. So that's the point. That's all I wanted to clear up. The next thing I wanted to talk about was, again, to do with Grant Cardone. I said in my video with Aaron Smith 11, I did a lot of deep diving. I spent a lot of time looking at his social media stats and the way he promotes his content and what he does. And I made it very, very clear that his mission is to become a celebrity on social media. And the best way of selling any products or whatever and all of that is to just become a celebrity, which, you can watch the video that Aaron I did where I dissect that as a marketing professional and talk about that. But I also, after that interview, spent a lot of time watching this US TV show that Grant Cardone did called Undercover Billionaire. I don't know if you guys have watched this or heard of this. It was quite hard to find in the UK because it's a US TV show. But effectively, Grant Cardone is dropped off in a city somewhere, Pueblo, and then in Colorado, and is given $100 and says you have 3 months to make a $1 million business. It's actually quite a fascinating show to watch. What he ends up doing is starting a social media agency, which still exists today, right? This place is called Wake Up Pueblo. He partnered up with someone else and started this social media agency, and he did achieve his goal. He made a load of money in 3 months, and I am not by any means saying that Wake Up Pueblo is not a successful social media agency, because they hired the right people that knew what they're doing. They are still quite successful today. But Grant Cardone's methods and the way he utilizes and the reason he utilizes social media very evidently do not work. Someone on Aaron's channel left a comment about Grant Cardone obviously is very successful at social media because he's got millions of followers and blah, 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 and, whatever. It's true. He has millions of followers. I personally have managed many social media accounts with more followers than Grant Cardone has had ever. And he currently has, right? This is what I do for a living. I used to work for the largest social media agency in the country. I have personally managed many accounts with a much larger reach and a much larger engagement and much more success than Grant Cardone has ever had on social media. Regardless of that fact, Grant Cardone's social media strategy is to reach the most amount of people, not to build engagement, right? His strategy is to put out as much content as you can. If you put out 3 videos every single day, eventually your following will just grow. And if you annoy people in the process and they say you post too much, oh, well, you don't want them anyway, you'll get new people. That's his words, not mine. There is some merit to that idea of constantly posting content. However, if you have a business, and this is the example I'm going to use because I'm going to share this. There's a business called the Snooze Mattress Company, which is in Pueblo, in Colorado, which is another business owned by the guy Grant Cardone partnered up with in the Billionaire, Undercover Billionaire TV show. He owned another business which sells mattresses, right? And Grant then managed to get him to sign up his business, Snooze, to also be a client of their shared company, Wake Up Pueblo, which is all about social media. And I trolled through and I looked at them all, and they applied their strategy of create loads of content and hopefully something will bite to promote Snooze Mattress Company's products, their services, try and get them a better following and drive business to them. Now, as someone that does this as a living, I can tell you already it's not going to work because you have to really focus on the targeted market, what you're trying to achieve with the content. If you're trying to sell mattresses, putting videos out every day is not necessarily the best way to utilize your money and your time to drive sales to your business, right? It is valuable, yes, but it might be better to spend your money and time elsewhere. For example, in paid ads. If you have $1,000 to spend in a month on social media, it might be better to spend $500 of that paying someone to create the content, and then $500 of that promoting it as adverts. I don't think it would be beneficial to spend the whole $1,000 on just creating a load of videos and putting them out there and hoping that your organic reach captures it and grows, right? Which is basically what Grant Cardone does. So if we just share my screen again, sound is not necessarily needed for this one because we're just going to look at Snooze Mattress Company and we're going to look at their YouTube page. So they're posting content every day, fine. And it is, I've got to give it to them, well-produced, well-made content, lots of really good videos that are really well-made. However, if we look back to the very beginning of when they started doing all the stuff with Grant Cardone, right? Who is Snooze? 23,000 views. Okay, I would guess that that's something they paid to promote. Every other video that they're putting out there, look, 105 views, 37, 89, 13, 21, 15 views, 41, 17, 12. All of their videos are getting very, very minimal views, right? This one, 8 views, 21 views. This is evidence here that creating content and putting content out there will only reach the followers you already have and maybe a few more, but it's not going to drive massive growth of your channel and therefore direct people to your website. You know, you have the odd occasional exception here, like Dream Mapping, 7.3 thousand views. Now, when you look at this in context of all the other videos, that is something I would estimate that they've paid for to promote. The same with this one, Create Your Own Pillow, 108,000 views. So this is where they've started putting budget behind promoting the videos, because that's how you get a bigger reach outside of your existing audience. The ones that don't have that, 72, 45, 60, 7, 43. This is evidence of Grant Cardone using his own social media strategy on a company owned by his own business partner. Evidence of it not working. Grant Cardone does not know what he's talking about when it comes to social media. It may work for him personally, wanting to create this celebrity brand. Great, put out content all the time. It's going to get people, etc. It's going to make you famous. People are going to see it. But when it comes to a business, Snooze Mattresses, trying to sell mattresses, the best way of utilizing social to drive business to your business is not through just posting content and hoping people see it. It's actually better to utilize social media in a different way, which is not what Grant Cardone does. Anyway, that is my rant over. I'm very sorry ranting about this, but I needed to get it off my chest. I could talk about this for hours and hours. Let's have a look at the chat. Has anybody got any thoughts on anything I just said? Has anyone got any questions? Would anyone like to ask me anything? Please do at me in the chat so I get the notification. And then I can read through them. Having followers doesn't mean you make money. Exactly. That's exactly it. People think you have followers and subscribers and that makes you money. No. What makes you money is clicking through. If you put an ad out there and 1 million people see it, you're going to need 100,000 of those to click through to your website, and you're going to need 1,000 of those to click buy or call or whatever your call to action is for that to turn into money. It's not about necessarily how many people see the ad. It's about how many people click through from the ad to your website or to the call button or email or whatever it is you're trying to get them to do. So yeah, exactly. Goldie, how many subscribers? Snooze Mattress Company. The videos that I showed you that we scroll down to are 2 years old. They have 285 subscribers. And those videos that we were looking through earlier are their oldest ones. They're 2 years old. So in 2 years, by applying Grant Cardone's strategy of posting content all the time, in 2 years, they have grown from 0 to 285 subscribers. All I'm going to say is I started this YouTube account almost exactly a month ago. And I have 2,500 subscribers. And I do not post content in the same way they do. Just saying. I want to sleep on Grant Cardone's mattress. I have no idea how to respond to that. Anyway, thank you so much for stopping by, guys. I'm going to hang on in there for a couple more minutes just in case any of you guys want to ask me any questions. Now is your time. I can confirm Ed Sheeran was not a Scientologist. I can talk about this personally from experience, which I can't talk too much about publicly, but I can confirm as someone who has a personal connection with Ed Sheeran that he is not and was not ever a Scientologist. I used to watch videos from England and there was a guy on there that was a ex. He used to dress up in a pirate costume, wondering if you know of him. I do not know of him. I don't know of anyone that likes to dress up as a pirate, but I wish I did because I could be down for that. Yar. Shiver me timbers. I like a good pirate. Thank you. Hello, Eddie May. Best wishes. Hope you're all well. Thank you for joining us. We have a super chat in the house. LJ Vespertil. At this point in your YouTube career, how can we subscribers best support you, especially people like me who don't use social media much? Well, firstly, thank you for your super chat. It is really appreciated. The best way of supporting an up-and-coming YouTuber is obviously there's the financial thing, right? If you go to the link in the description or on my channel, you can go to buymeacoffee.com. You can donate £5, £10, whatever, buy me a coffee. That helps support the financial side of things, like the StreamYard, fee that I have to pay, the microphone, the stat, everything else that goes into the financial side of things. But But the best way of supporting an up-and-coming YouTuber, particularly myself, is genuinely, and it sounds really lame, but like, subscribe, comment. There's a reason that that's a thing, right? Because YouTube's algorithm and all algorithms on social media are based on engagement. So the more something is engaged with, the more the algorithm will then push it and send it to other people. Right. So if lots of people start commenting and engaging and sharing a video the moment it goes out, like on a live stream, YouTube will then show that video to more people because it shows that people are interested in it and that content is valuable. Right. So when I say the best way of supporting a YouTuber like myself is by engaging, liking, sharing, commenting, I do genuinely mean it, because the more engagement a video gets, the more YouTube will put it out to other people. So financial, great, and I do really appreciate that, but the best way is sharing it. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram. Don't post on Instagram as much as I should, but sharing on social media, videos when I go live, for example, and commenting like you guys currently are, the more that happens, the more engagement will drive the growth of the channel. So when you hear me at the end of a video saying like, share, subscribe, it's not just because you have to say that and you're a YouTuber. It is because that genuinely does help with the growth of the channel. So thank you for that. MB826, thank you for that super sticker. I appreciate that. Ask a question next time. Make it a super chat. I will have Grant Cardone blown for good on his Rolls Royce hood. Sounds like the start of a rap. I like that. Scott Davidson, another super sticker. Thank you. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Broken Dishes. Do the likes on comments also figure into the algorithm? I don't believe so. I think it's an overall engagement thing. So if someone posts a comment and then 100 people like it and reply to it, that all feeds into the engagement thing. But the engagement number is calculated by the comments on a video, the shares, the likes, and it's all within a time period. So while someone's live, if 100 people start commenting very quickly, like, I don't know if you've seen YouTubers do this, when they say, do you agree with this statement? Put a 1 in the comment if you do and a 2 if you don't. What that does is that gets everyone watching the video to post a comment in the live chat. 1 1 1 1 1 2 2 2, whatever. But because there's suddenly a quick flurry of a load of people commenting in the chat, that means something that you've produced in the content and something you've said has created a reaction, and therefore it's valuable. So YouTube will see that and start putting the live chat out to other people. So the way engagement is calculated is it's all a big algorithm. But yes, the more engagement, the better. Likes on comments help, but it's not the biggest. The biggest thing is to comment yourself, or share, or like, or do all of the above. Yes, Poe is going live tonight with Doug Kramer, Dazed but Not Confused. So 100% go and check that out a bit later. Doug is a really good friend of mine. He's a really cool guy. All right, guys. I love that couple you put 1 in the chat. Appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, put your questions here in the chat now. I'm going to probably call it a night fairly soon because you guys have got a lot of content to consume tonight. So now is your chance in the next, let's call it 3 minutes. So at 15 minutes past, I will call it a night on the questions. So jump in now while you've got them. Sorry, I didn't make roll call, Alex. Love that. Roll call. So for those of you who don't know, in Scientology, at the beginning of if you're a student, you're learning, you're reading books, doing courses, you have a roll call, just like reading the register as a kid in school, be the same thing, who's here. And you have the same thing at staff meetings. Every morning, if you missed roll call, you were late, you are declared PTS. If you're late, that's because you're connected to a suppressive person. Even if your train that you always get, that gets you in on time every day, this one day is delayed by 5 minutes because someone ran across the railroad tracks, that's because you're connected to a suppressive person. Genuinely happened once. I was late by like 3 minutes because my train had to stop at a station slightly longer than normal because someone crossed the railway line. Someone ran across it or something, and that was a big security risk. So we had to stop a bit longer. I was like 2-3 minutes late to staff meeting, the roll call, and they said, well, you put yourself in the situation where you were on that train where someone ran in front of it and therefore it was late. So therefore you are connected to suppressed person, because if you're not connected to suppressed person, you wouldn't have put yourself on the train that was going to be late. And I said, well, I'm on this exact same train every morning and it always gets me in on time. This is a one-off thing that happened. Well, you're a spiritual being with more power and more of everything than you could ever imagine. So therefore you as a spiritual being would have known, and you would have put yourself on an earlier train that day. The fact that you didn't says you're connected to someone as oppressive. Madness. Anyway, is there any difference between the Church of Scientology in the UK versus the ones in the US? Do they do things differently? Yes and no. There are a lot of similarities and a lot of differences. And I think that is the goal of my channel here, is to highlight and explain and talk about those similarities and differences. I mean, if you look at the policy, if you look at L. Ron Hubbard and what he says, what he teaches, and what the policy says, how to run an organization and so on, that doesn't change. You're not allowed to change that. But the way it is applied can differ. And things, for example, that happen in the US wouldn't happen in the UK, and vice versa. There are instances where we got away in the UK with doing stuff that they wouldn't let you get away with in the US. And the UK had a special reputation within Scientology because L. Ron Hubbard used to live here at St. Hill Manor in East Grinstead. The UK was kind of always seen internationally as like doing its own thing anyway, even if int management didn't want you to do it. So it was a bit different, but there were many similarities, and that's what I hope to do with this channel. So if you haven't already, check out the videos I've already uploaded, particularly the interviews I've done with Catherine Olson, a former Sea Org member. She worked in a Class 5 org similar to me, Columbus org, but she was a Sea Org member, so she used to work in int management, she used to work in ethics, senior HCO, so she saw both sides of how Scientology is run. So definitely go back and watch that content, because I think that will answer a lot of your questions, and I hope to answer a lot more of those questions as time goes on. MB826. Thank you for your super chat. Is there any time when a Scientologist is a victim or gets a bad medical diagnosis, when Scientology doesn't blame them or tell them they pulled it in? I became T1D at 30. So is there a time when a Scientologist is a victim or gets a bad medical diagnosis when Scientology doesn't blame them or tell them they put it in? I think we have to frame this very carefully. If you're a Scientologist and you get diagnosed with something terrible, when you go in and tell your auditor that you've been diagnosed with this thing, they don't instantly go, well, what have you done? You've pulled it in, right? It's a lot more subtle than that. But ultimately, the question they're going to come down to and the thing they're going to get to is that you pulled it in, right? And you're the one that's caused this situation. Now, for context, this is presented in Scientology as a positive thing. It's empowering. The idea is that you are this spiritual being that's immortal with more powers than you can ever imagine in the world. So therefore, you are in control of your environment. That's a very empowering thing, right? If you were ever in a situation that you're not happy with, you don't like it, it's quite empowering to think, well, you have the ability to change that. You can change your environment, right? And that is a good thing. That's how they get you in on it. And that's how it's sold. But the problem is when you come down with an illness or something terrible happens, the same logic is applied, but it suddenly has a negative impact or negative side effect, right? Because if you come down with some terrible disease or some terrible illness, well, if you're this immortal spiritual being with more power than you could ever imagine, you therefore have somehow and for some reason put yourself in a situation where you've allowed yourself to get this sickness or this illness, or you've created this issue for yourself. That's not necessarily a bad thing. The Scientology don't present it as an accusation. You've done this to put, but they're just presenting it in a way that, well, if you believe you're ultimately in control of your environment, well, therefore you've put yourself in a situation where that has been allowed to happen. So therefore, how do we fix that, right? How do we get you out of that? And in Scientology, the belief very much is that all sickness or illness is caused by being a PTS, potential trouble source, connected to a suppressive person, which obviously is incorrect, because illness happens through bacteria and viruses, and this whole science thing that has proven that illnesses aren't necessarily caused by connections to bad people. If you're skiing and you fall down and break your leg, well, yeah, ultimately, same logic. You are the only one responsible there. You're the one that broke your leg from skiing. No one crashed into you. You just fell over and hurt yourself, right? Well, yeah, ultimately, you're the one that did it. You're responsible for it. But ultimately, you've learned your lesson. You're not going to do that again, right? And that's the logic behind the principle in Scientology, is that you've caused it to happen, but you've learned your lesson. Make sure it doesn't happen again. But with illnesses and sicknesses and things like this, it's because, well, you've got a cough or a cold or the flu. Well, that's because you're connected to a suppressive person, which is just illogical. But anyway, long-winded rabbit hole. Going back to your question, is there ever a time when they don't tell you that you pulled it in? Well, no, because ultimately that's what they're getting to. But they won't be as blunt as that, as saying you pulled it in. It will be a questioning, because everything in Scientology is never you're told this. Everything in Scientology is to get you to come to that conclusion in your own mind. Scientology makes you do, I think it was Chris Shelton's interview the other day, where someone said it's self-brainwashing. You do the work yourself. In Scientology, they'll sit you down, they'll go, well, what did you do? What overts have you committed? What are your withholds? What have you done to put yourself in a situation where you've allowed that to happen? They're not saying you've done this, you've made it happen. They're saying, well, what have you done to make that happen? So in your mind, you're not thinking, God, this guy sat opposite me telling me I've done something wrong. You're sat there going, oh, this guy's trying to find out the truth. Well, let me think. What is it that I've done wrong? And it's little subtle differences in language like that that allows Scientology to have the effect that it does. I hope that makes sense to you guys. I'm just trying to explain the subtle differences of language and how that impacts your brain. You're not accused or told you pulled it in. You're asked, well, how did you pull it in? Or why did you pull it in? Which gets you to start asking that question in your head. LJ Verspatil again. Thank you for another super chat. I really appreciate that. Any US, UK cultural differences that you think made your Scientology experience better or worse than Mike, A, M, or C? I'm guessing that's Aaron, Mark, or Claire, or Chris. And for fun, what are some of your favorite books, music, or movies? Okay, so a lot of cultural differences in that in the UK, things are a little bit more laid back. There is a lot of awareness in Scientology here that it's seen as this crazy American cult, right? This weird thing. So there's a lot of awareness around that and how Scientology is perceived in the public. So I think people here are a bit more reserved anyway. And when it comes to Scientology, it's a bit more reserved because we're even more aware that if you're meeting this new person that doesn't know what Scientology is, we're aware that there's a, reputation out there that is this crazy extreme American thing. So it's almost like we dialed it back a bit so that it didn't come across as wacky and crazy and as American as it is seen. So that's a cultural difference that really affected how we operated in the UK. To answer your next question, what are some of your favorite books, movies, and music? So favorite book, To Kill a Mockingbird, without a doubt. I studied that as a teenager in school and loved it, and 100%, hands down. That and The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, two of my favorite books of all time. Favorite music, I'm a metalhead. I love rock. Blink-182 are my favorite band. I also love a bit of electronic music. Pendulum, I saw them on Sunday last week. They were fantastic. Bring Me the Horizon. I've got tattoos, and this is a band, Bring Me the Horizon. I've got their tattoo. Normandy, they're a mate's band of mine in Sweden. I've got a tattoo of their album cover. So yeah, rock, metal, and a bit of electronic in terms of music. Movies, don't know. I'm not a massive, huge movie person. I wish I was more of a movie person. I am. Breaking Bad, excellent TV show. Love things like that on Netflix. But my favorite movie of all time will probably be Avatar. Do not put any spoilers about Avatar 2 in the chat because I have not seen it yet, and I know I'm behind. And I'm going to see it very, very soon. But Avatar is by all means my favorite movie of all time. Alrighty, thank you so much everyone for joining. I am going to call it a night soon. Do I like Black Sabbath? Yes, is the answer to that. Love a bit of Ozzy Osbourne. Saw him live a few years ago. So life outside is still much more enriching. Free will feels good. You got to be right. That is so true. I want to get Shameless Apostate tattooed on me. Just haven't figured out a design and where to put it. You know what? When I was in Scientology, I was very close to getting a Scientology tattoo. There were a couple of people that did get tattoos when we were in Scientology. And there was a big thing because the Scientology S with the triangles is copyrighted and trademarked. So is the Scientology cross. And so is the Sea Org logo. These are all things that we discussed about getting tattoos. And I very, very nearly got a tattoo. But I didn't, because the only thing that would have not ended up with someone in ethics trouble is the infinity sign, because that's kind of a Scientology sign, but it's not trademarked, obviously. And I didn't want to get an infinity sign. It's just a bit lame, really, in my mind, for the mindset I was in at the time. But no, I very nearly did get a Scientology tattoo, and I'm glad that I didn't. Anyway, thank you so much, everyone. Goldie also has to run. I'm going to run too. Thank you for joining in. Thank you so much for all the super chats. As Goldie mentioned, Poe is going live tonight. So please go and check him out with Doug Kramer tonight, and catch you guys very, very soon on the next one.